that the one thing I found that can make the world of difference to someone's sort of experience in hospital. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today's video is actually going to be a little bit different to the ones that you actually see on my channel, in terms of I'll be talking about how my experience as a Crohn's disease patient has influenced the way that I treat my own patients at work. But as usual, before we get started, I'd really appreciate it if you can hit that subscribe button and like this video. Please feel free to leave any comments that you want of any other videos you'd like to see on my channel. And if you haven't already, you can check out my social media pages. All the links are in the description below. And you can check out my website and sign up to my newsletter, where I send exclusive tips and tricks on how to live with Crohn's disease. So obviously the first thing that you start to think about when you're diagnosed is sort of what treatments you're going to be having, coming up with a treatment plan. And at the time, even though my symptoms were pretty bad, I did go down the medical route. Eventually later on I did need 2 surgeries. At first I was put on different medications such as methotrexate, steroids, immunosuppressants, and there are a lot more that I can't really remember off the top of my head. But it really did feel like the technique at the time was throw anything against the wall and see what sticks. And to be fair, and it's just my opinion, that this is what treating Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis is like, because there is no one size fits all. It's such an individualistic condition that what may work for me may not work for someone else, and vice versa. Now, I actually saw 3 different specialists before seeing the specialist that I've been seeing now for about 10-11 years. But what actually got me was how poorly the treatment regime was sort of planned out, and how I wasn't really explained on what the medications would do to me, and I was kind of left on my own to figure out how to manage with the side effects. And if you've had drug treatment for IBD, then you know some of the medications can make you feel more worse than your actual symptoms, and that's just through the side effects alone. But that wasn't really what the problem was for me. I'm sure it wasn't very nice to go through at all, but what was the worst thing for me was being treated as a list of symptoms. Every consultation and every sort of doctor I saw just saw me as this list where they had to go through and check things off. So it really did feel like, oh, you got stomach cramps, take this. Vomiting, take this. Constipated, try this. It made me feel like a number, or sort of being treated as if I wasn't human. I know I was only 17 at this point, and that this was my first sort of major experience, and the longest I had to deal with consultations and doctors, because before all that I was actually quite healthy and didn't really need to go to the doctors. But it did make me feel pretty rubbish about myself, and made me kind of lose confidence in the whole sort of healthcare system and in the doctors that were treating me. So yeah, after the 3rd one, I didn't really have much hope for seeing someone else, but I went and saw someone else, and the change was massive. I still remember the very first kind of consultation which I had with my specialist that I'm seeing now, and I'm sure with some of you as well who have been seeing your specialists for a very long time, they've become more of a friend than your doctor, and that we've known each other for that long, and so we have a very good relationship. But the very first appointment that we at the start, we barely spoke about my Crohn's disease, which sounds odd, but he literally just asked me about me and what made me me. That sounds quite weird, but it just kind of humanized me and made me feel individual and kind of valued, that I was being seen as a person and not as a sort of number on a request form, or as a list of symptoms. But more importantly, I was being listened as to what I like and what my interests were, what my hobbies were, what my sort of career aspirations were. It was one of the very first consultations or appointments I have specifically for my Crohn's disease, where I got to talk about me. Some of you that may not be a big deal, but with all these different types of medications, how they can give you side effects that can impact your life. It makes you feel that you don't have a life anymore, and that you're just sort of a prisoner of your disease, and that it's controlling you rather than the other way around. So yeah, in this consultation, we just kind of spoke about me, what I like, and then the conversation obviously naturally found its way back to my Crohn's, which was obviously the whole point of the appointment. And after going through my medical history and what medication I was on and how they made me feel, I had different tests conducted, because obviously seeing a new consultant, they want to do their own tests. So after discussing that and having those sort of new blood tests and things, I came back for my second appointment, and it was decided that I was to be put on pentasa and azathioprine, which I've been doing very well on for so long now. But I just wasn't put on these medications. It wasn't like, here you go, take them, we'll see what happens. It was here's what you're going to be having, and here's what you may actually feel and how they may affect your life. So even though at this point I knew there was no cure, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing about Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, regardless of what you read out there and what people say, there is no cure. And despite that, even after these first two consultations, I felt completely different to how I was with the other doctors I saw. I know there was no cure, but I felt kind of happy and hopeful that I could sort of get this crappy disease under control and start controlling it rather than the other way around. So now a lot of you are thinking, what is he rambling on about? What has this got to do with how I sort of treat patients at work? Well, I'll tell you now. Having spent a fair bit of my time in hospital, as a patient, I got used to kind of the hospital environment, and my job now is a diagnostic radiographer. So having experienced what I kind of went through during my treatment gave me incredible insight as to how to provide better care for my patients that I encounter on a day-to-day basis. And I do encounter quite a lot of people in one day. But the more time that I went on living with my Crohn's and the few jobs that I've had in the NHS dealing with patients, I've realised that my experiences have taught me a lot, and that more importantly, I have a voice. I have a voice and an opinion of what happens to me in hospital. And even though at times it may not feel like it, you do have full control of the treatment you go on and what happens to you at your hospital appointments. We get taught a lot at uni about patient-centered care, and the whole point of that is having you as the patient in the center of all decision making, because it is your life, it is your body, it's your choice and your decision to have certain treatments or to have procedures done to it. So this is something I try to convey to my patients, and I try to give them the opportunity to speak up, to use their voice and be heard, all because of what I went through in the early stages of my diagnosis. I know even though I don't provide treatment per se to my patients, but carrying out the images that is needed to provide them with a diagnosis of what is causing them the problems, it is still such a valuable part of their experience and their journey within a hospital. And so to be able to allow them to voice their concerns and opinions can make the whole world a difference. I'm sure most of you have been in a hospital environment and just been sitting in the waiting room, and you can see how busy it gets, and waiting times can be so long, and we can be put under pressure to try and get through all of the patients, and it can kind of turn into a conveyor belt motion of one in, one out, just to try and manage the workload. But it is at these busy moments that the one thing I found that can make the world of difference to someone's sort of experience in hospital is just asking the simple question of, are you okay? It sounds so silly, but just that little question invites someone to open up. And if you're in a room with them, away from the sort of reception area, they kind of feel safe to kind of just tell you their problems, tell you what's worrying them, and any of their concerns, which not only the concerns they may have of the imaging that I'm about to do, but of what's kind of going on. I've had so many people kind of complain about the doctors and nurses that they feel that they haven't had the right sort of care with. And I'm not saying all doctors and nurses don't provide the right care, because we do such a fantastic job in the NHS. But unfortunately, when we get busy, we can kind of forget that the most important cog in the wheel is the patient. But just allowing someone to sort of express themselves, it can make them feel valued, that they've even been given the opportunity to tell you their concerns, and it just express themselves, making them feel like they're a human, they're a person, and not just a number on the request form that is for you to just get through. I've had patients thank me for even asking how they were, and it's not a big thing really, it's just a few simple words, but you do realise that it really is the little things in life that make the biggest impact, and it's what people remember the most. And that's really it for this video. If you've had a similar experience to what I've had, or have had something completely different experience in hospital, please let me know in the comments section. I would love to hear all your experiences, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and visit my social media pages in the description below. So thanks for watching, and I shall see you next time at the next video.